Hi, this is Linda Stern, the Director of Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning at the National Democratic Institute. The National Democratic Institute is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization working to support and strengthen democratic institutions worldwide through citizen participation, openness, and accountability in government. In this presentation, I'll provide an overview of NDI's approach to evaluating the challenging area of democracy assistance. Since 1983, NDI has designed and implemented programs to strengthen the democratic infrastructure of countries overseas. These democracy assistance programs include elections, governance, political parties, candidate debates, citizen participation, gender, women, and democracy and technology. Over the last 30 years, these programs have deployed over 150 international election delegations to 62 countries, worked with over 300 domestic election monitoring organizations, and trained over 3 million election observers in 85 countries. Our governance programming has worked with over 10,000 legislators, while our political party programs have worked with over 850 political parties, as well as trained over 500,000 party poll watchers in 50 countries. NDI has sponsored over 300 candidate debates, supported 15,000 civic organizations, and 1,300 women's organizations. While we can demonstrate the scope and scale of our work, how does NDI know its democracy assistance is effective? How does NDI know its programming is having an impact? Let's start with what we do know about democracy assistance. In 2005, USAID commissioned Vanderbilt University and the University of Pittsburgh to implement a comprehensive research study to answer the question, what is the impact of investing in democracy assistance? The peer-reviewed study clearly demonstrated that USAID's global investment in democracy assistance programming from 1990 to 2004 yielded clear democratic returns as measured by composite indicators in 5 areas of free and fair elections, civil society, governance, free media, and human rights. Over a 14-year period, there were clear and positive changes in elections, civil society, governance, and free media. The only indicators that did not show a dramatic change were in the area of human rights. The study was replicated in 2007, expanding the timeline to 2006, and showed similar results, that investment in democracy assistance creates positive change overseas. While these USAID studies answered the broad question on what is the impact of democracy assistance, the study was not designed to answer questions on how and why democracy assistance works or doesn't work. And of course, these are the kinds of questions that democracy assistance practitioners like NDI need to answer. For example, NDI had a number of questions on the cause and effect relationships within our programs. In South Sudan, NDI wanted to know, can a civic education radio program not only increase knowledge, but change civic behavior in transition countries? In Uganda, NDI wanted to know, does SMS technology differentially impact citizen communication strategies with their parliamentarians? And in Cambodia, NDI wanted to know, do multi-party debates change the democratic knowledge, confidence, and behavior of poor rural citizens living in semi-authoritarian regimes? To answer these kinds of causal questions, NDI has established a number of collaborative research partnerships with leading academics to design and implement randomized controlled trials, or RCTs. To answer our causal questions on civic education and civic behavior, we partnered with Dr. Betsy Pollock from Princeton University to do an RCT in South Sudan. To answer the causal questions on SMS technology and constituency communications, we partnered with Dr. McCartan Humphreys from Columbia University to do an RCT in Uganda. And to answer causal questions on multi-party town hall debates and citizen confidence, we partnered with Dr. Susan Hyde from Yale University to do an RCT in Cambodia. In our work with these academics, we found that, yes, during a hopeful transition, a civic education radio program could indeed change both civic attitudes and civic behavior in South Sudan. However, the key was to couple the civic radio program with face-to-face facilitated discussions at the community level. And yes, in Uganda, SMS technology differentially impacted how citizens communicated with their parliamentarians. In addition, on the supply side, we found that enhancing citizen communications through SMS technology was not enough to increase parliamentarians' responsiveness to those citizens. And yes, in Cambodia, multi-party town hall debates did change citizens' understanding of democracy and the role of their elected representatives. And yes, multi-party debates did change civic behavior at the town hall events where they occurred. But no, multi-party town hall debates did not change citizens' confidence in their democracy. The key was found in the qualitative data, where corruption and intimidation at the local levels were key factors in undermining citizens' confidence in their democracy. Along with RCTs to answer causal questions, NDI also uses other kinds of methodologies to answer other kinds of evaluation questions. For example, what are the downstream effects of engaging women in the political process? How do they interpret their new political participation? And are our programs having a differential impact on men and women? How effective and sustainable are the political networks and coalitions that we work with? And have our critical assumptions held true on political voice, space, and accountability for marginalized groups? Starting with questions on women's political participation, NDI has created a number of gender-sensitive approaches to evaluation, moving beyond simply measuring parity between men and women in political participation to focusing on including women's voices in the evaluation, measuring differential impacts on women and men, and defining metrics for women's political empowerment. For example, to answer questions on the downstream effects of our work and to include women's perspectives on the value of our programs, in Guatemala and Burkina Faso, NDI used a narrative inquiry methodology to capture women's voices through participatory storytelling and analysis. By arming local councilwomen and civic leaders with disposable cameras, NDI's evaluation team was able to document how women's political participation was influencing other women and their local communities. Through a formal content analysis of their stories, NDI was able to capture women's interpretations and insights on their political participation in their fragile democracies, illuminating the barriers as well as the opportunities for women's political participation at the local level. To answer important evaluation questions on the differential impact of our programming on men and women, in Cambodia, NDI's evaluation team tested the influence of gender on deliberation and prioritization at the local level. NDI found that when deliberating separately from men, women identified different priority problems and priority solutions for their communities. The evaluation team also found that when women were given the opportunity to deliberate in small groups the day before the large town hall meetings, they were 1.5 times more likely than other female citizens to raise their hands and voice their concerns during the large town hall meetings. Moving to our evaluation questions on the effectiveness and sustainability of political coalitions, NDI has begun piloting social network analysis with civil society coalitions in South Korea, Uganda, Burkina Faso, and Turkey. For example, in Turkey, we were able to use social network analysis to map out and measure the most active members within the checks and balances network, how the network was self-organizing around key issues, and who were the most influential brokers within the network. In Burkina Faso, NDI used social network analysis data to help a women's rights coalition self-assess how effectively the membership was working together in UN shadow reporting, advocacy initiatives, and managing the coalition for long-term sustainability. Most recently, NDI wanted to evaluate the critical assumptions underpinning its theory of change around voice, space, and accountability. In other words, NDI wanted to know if strengthening political voice and political space with historically marginalized communities like the Roma in Eastern Europe leads to increased government accountability at the local level. To test these critical assumptions in our long-standing Roma program in Slovakia, NDI used an evaluation approach that was reflective of our commitment to empowering Roma citizens to engage as agents of change in their own democracies. We developed a year-long participatory evaluation program in which NDI engaged Roma activists as full partners in testing our critical assumptions at the local level. This included establishing a Roma advisory group and training Roma research assistants in community-based participatory research. The Roma advisory group and research assistants were integral in defining the purpose of the evaluation, selecting the community case studies, and in collecting and analyzing data. We also engaged Roma activists and representatives from their communities in the interpretation of findings and strategized on how they would use those findings to improve citizen voice, space, and accountability. Through its experimental research partnerships, methodological innovations, and evidence-based programming, NDI contributes to organizational learning, advances academic knowledge, and informs policy making in the democracy assistance sector. By asking and answering diverse evaluation questions, NDI's evaluative work holds us accountable for high-quality programming, not only to our donors and to ourselves, but most importantly, it holds us accountable to our local democratic partners. If you would like more information on how NDI is evaluating its democracy assistance programming, please feel free to contact me at lstern@ndi.org. Thank you.